What do we want? How about some English breakfast tea? Haven't you ever tried to be the best in your entire life? Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Haven't you ever tried? Fucking dog. Thank God some people with actual money have invested in EA Games. The Saudi Arabians. Alright. My toast. The tea brewing, got the toast. Making progress. Making progress on the card game. That is the main objective today. Before I go back into another goddamn work week of uncertainty and stress. It's my own fault. Can't blame anybody else. The way my life is. The way I perceive things. It's alright. Learning every day, getting better at what I do. That's all that matters. If the money runs out for some reason, then probably find a new opportunity that's more lucrative. Or I'll just do something else that I like better and be happier for it. I don't know why people are so fucking stressed all the time. Good God. And why is it so important that you do this one thing in particular, this one thing succeeds or whatever? It's not important. Anyway, stay positive today. It's Sunday, it's the weekend. What do I want to talk about? Well, I want to talk about my card game. Making rapid progress now. Well, I don't know about rapid, but it's easier for me to focus in on it at this point because it's getting closer and closer to a stage where I can test it. Coming down the home stretch now. Kind of funny. This was version 1. Of the game. This was version 2. Version 3 I haven't printed out yet, but it looks pretty good. Scrapped the idea of more than one offensive weapon. It's just too complicated. When you have start saying, oh, if you tap this way, it's going to be one weapon. If you tap this way, it's going to be another weapon. Where do I put those on the card to designate that where people can easily understand that that's how it works? So I said I didn't need that extra complication when people are looking at a board. Because what am I trying to accomplish? Using everything that a card game has available to it, not much, to hold and communicate information. What do you basically have on the most fundamental level? A line of cards on your side, a line of cards on the other side for your opponent, and the orientation of those cards. Now, you could get more complex than that, sure, but in my mind, those are the two most basic, fundamental elements that you have to work with for communicating information about the state of the game that you're in at any given time. Compare that to chess, for example. Chess has, 64 spaces that, these 24 different pieces could be in at any point in time. And it's easy to glance at a chessboard and take in all of that information because it's spatial. It's like it's a 2D plane, but there's 3D pieces. The pieces are symbols. They represent functionality, different functionality, The king obviously being the most important piece. The objective is to, of chess is to kill the other king before yours gets killed. And all the other pieces are disposable. Anyway, you're never reading a bunch of text in chess. You're never doing a bunch of math. To going through in your brain, okay, this is this type of card. that falls into this genre, like sub genre of fucking types, which means that it gets, +2 of this attribute. Which means if that it attacks and gets blocked by these two guys, because there are these different types, their numbers will add up to whatever, unless this dude plays a particular card as a response. Whereas when you're playing chess, it's real simple. And you can just look at the board and take in all that information. So with the card game, you got the battle line, you got the individual cards, and you've got the stuff on the cards, which gives you a way to say, okay, this is the upright position of that card. That's upright. If it's turned to the left, it's now facing a different direction. If it's upside down, it's facing a different direction. And hey, I've got all my cards aligned on a line. That means something. Magic the Gathering doesn't care about that. It doesn't feel the need to use any kind of board element to change the way the cards are used or behave. Besides, hey, is the card in your hand? Hey, is it on the board? Has it been played? That's it. So in my game, it will matter where you play the card on the board. And the use of symbols, I think, is really useful and important. Like Magic the Gathering, it doesn't really have any symbols besides the colors and like the tap symbol. It uses a lot of keywords, which could easily be replaced as symbols. Keywords like trample, poison, first strike, flying, vigilance, defender, reach, flash, the one where you have to get blocked by two guys at least. Indestructible, unblockable, I think is one. Death touch, or I guess that's poison. It's called death touch. Bunch of keywords. So what I need to do is figure out, and these keywords that Magic the Gathering uses basically are the most fundamental ways that a card might have some sort of advantage or disadvantage or restriction that other cards don't have. So I'm trying to do that with my game because there's a lot that's different in this game from Magic the Gathering. There's elements that I just need to come up with keywords for like the main stuff, and decide. And I think that coming up with effects for the cards. For just the 21 starting classes, these guys: Pilgrim, Bard, Acrobat, Knight, Barbarian, Nightblade, Rogue, Witch Hunter, Thief, Spellsword, Crusader, Healer, Assassin, Mage, Archer, Agent, Battle Mage, Monk, Sorcerer, Scout, Warrior. And I'll tell you what I've got for these guys so far. So Warrior, I came up with auto block. Oh, and I came up with a new fundamental rule. I'm thinking we're going to need the counterattack, the auto counterattack, to be a standard thing. But you could have the keyword. So, no. The auto attack is a standard. The auto counter is a standard thing for attacks coming from that direction. But what is also now standard is to full tap on your first auto counter. So it's strong, but it's not that strong. But you could have the keyword stalwart, which prevents you from ever tapping to a full tap from an auto block. Cards with shields potentially can have I just called it auto block. Probably come up with a more thematic word for that. But the way that would work is if you have a shield, you can get one more full block from an attack coming to the rear before a full tap. So I'm pretty happy with that whole system. I think it'll work well. So Warrior's got auto block. Archer just does 1 damage when it deploys. This game's going to have instead of on play like you see in other games, it's on deploy. So the other player actually gets to see what you're going to do in terms of on play effects, like a turn early. Oh, you know what? There should be a flash. There should be some kind of flash keyword. There's no reason you can't have that in this game. You just have to have enough supply to play those cards. So you could never flash onto the battle line turn 1, because you would never have, unless it was a 0 cost card. Ugh. So Archer just does 1 damage on deploy. I think Agent, I had to do some kind of scry. Just on deploy, look at the top card of your deck. Either draw it or put it on the bottom or something like that. Nightblade. Has Banish. It has a sword, but also has Banish because it's magic specialization. I think I gave it something like if any card survives combat with Nightblade, it full taps. Battle Mage, nothing yet for him besides he has Banish along with his axe. Acrobat inspired a keyword, a new keyword, Agile, at the end of your, or during your untap. You can reposition him on the board. Witch Hunter, I think, gain 2 septums if it gets a kill, either defending or attacking, or maybe it was just when attacking. Just when attacking. I think I need symbols for basically to replace the preface when attacking, when defending, and when either attacking or defending. Because I seem to want to distinguish between those 2 things a lot, or 3 things. So maybe coming up with some symbols for that would be cool. Yeah, I decided to replace supply with septums for now, because I always thought that was like a funny name for a currency. Bard. If Bard is still ready at the end of your turn, untap another card, or ready another card, so it's defensive. Spell Sword, every time he attacks, deal 1 unblockable damage to the health. Healer, pay 3 septums, rotate a card upright in your staging area. Crusader, I forget what I have for Crusader. I think I came up with something for him. What did I have for him? Scout, I think, just on play, draw a card. Barbarian, Bloodthirsty, new keyword. Every time you get a kill, it readies. So extremely strong. I don't know if that's going to be balanceable at all. Monk. I came up with an effect for him, but can't figure out a keyword for it. Basically. Oh wait, no, that was gonna be yeah. Monk can counter or dodge from anywhere on the battle line, so doesn't matter where he's at. It sort of transcends the default targets. Sort of like another agile type of thing. Rogue, I kind of forget what I did for Rogue. Something about paying 2 septums to... I know that's what Thief does. You pay 2 septums, discard a card. Opponent discards a card, you draw a card. Face down, I think. Or maybe, I forget. And Assassin ignores counters. So some of these are like more fundamental than others, and that's what I want to make into keywords. Something I could see giving way more than just 1 card. You know what I mean? Because there's a difference between, in Magic the Gathering, every card has to be unique, right? You can't just have 2 cards have different names but they do the same thing. Maybe they've done that, but I don't think they've ever changed the name of cards. They've reprinted cards, sure, but they never made the same card have a different name. So you need the keywords, is what I'm getting at. And then these four, I think I was gonna just get. I was gonna give Knight Stalwart. Nothing for Mage yet. Nothing for Pilgrim. Nothing for Sorcerer. But I'm almost done with just like getting to a point where I want to play test it. Because I know when I play test it, I'm going to think of all kinds of shit. So I just have to get to a point where it's... Because I play tested this. I had a very rudimentary system figured out when I made this. And I played a couple of games against myself trying to use this. And I was like, this game sucks. This is a terrible game. Like, it wasn't even a game, really. It was just like, there was no space for decision making. It was just play the cards and see who wins. You might as well play War with a deck of 52 cards. But we kept developing it. So I felt like I had some kind of vision for a different type of card game. Something a little more tactical. And I think I finally, this next version, I call it version 3. I think is actually going to be pretty playable. All these systems. The thing that is the biggest the biggest design choice is what is the default target if all the cards are upright. And it's not the deck. It's the last card in the line, depending on the direction of the attack. What does that mean? It could mean that it's a bad design choice, and I might change my mind about it. But maybe not. Because what it means is you don't have time to build your board, is what that amounts to. In Magic the Gathering, unless the opponent is running a really heavy removal deck,
you have time to build up your board because not taking you're not taking damage to the cards. Uh, you're taking it to your deck or your life force. So you've got time to maybe build up a board that can fight back. So that right there is a really big choice. If I change my mind about it and I say, oh, never mind, the deck is the default target, not whatever card you have on the battle line. One thing I'll have to do is change how dodge works. Because the way dodge works right now is that's the only way you direct damage to the deck instead of having to remove a card is with dodge. So if that would have been what happens, well, you could still have dodge work the same way, but all it would do is protect a default target that was behind the dodger. Or the dodging card. And that doesn't really make sense thematically to me. That's an interesting... I mean, that's basically what block does. But without... yeah, I mean, you could have dodge work the same way, and it would still make sense. But only if there was somebody down the line, the battle line, that you didn't want to be the default target of that attack. Because otherwise you just let the attack pass through, take the damage to your deck. So that's something I'm really going to have to think about. I think I changed up the weapon symbols a little bit. Unarmed ignores your opponent's speed and reach. Bow still just ignores dodge. Sword, I think, ready self on survived counter, or if you kill an attacking card via a counter, ready self and survive, which is not going to be something that happens frequently, I don't think. Maybe we need a way. Ooh, I like this idea. I think I like this idea. Hmm. 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 So, I want to change how dodge works. Yeah. Let me tell AI that right now. Update the rules document. We're going to change how dodge works. And we're going to have a new keyword too. You see, I never got to the point in my initial diatribe here about symbols playing an important role in this game. And just the, symbols being a nice sort of addition to keywords in a card game. That's why we have the weapons. The weapons represent keywords. But they're connected to a system of speed and reach. So it represents a dynamic application of a keyword. So the keywords in there and the position on the speed and reach scale is what determines the keyword's activation when attacking. And so that's all represented with a simple symbol, at least in terms of the weapons. The dodge and the block symbols just represent what the card can do besides counter or when receiving an attack from the back, potentially, when joined with another keyword. So it's funny, you don't really know what you're doing at the time of like developing stuff like this. But after the fact, well, once you refine it, you just try a bunch of different ideas, and eventually you like you hit the mark on something that seems like what you were going for. And then afterwards, when you describe it, it makes sense. Okay, I'm going to update AI. Update the readme.md. I want to update how dodge works. When dodging, wait a minute. There would be no point in dodging if you were going to do that. Okay, so I think dodge basically stays the same, but dodge basically stays the same, but we're going to have a new keyword that only dodgers can have. Because it's important that we never create a situation where one thing that the card does could potentially mean two different things. You know, so we're staying consistent with the whole design principle. Before I forget, omnipresent, I don't really like that. I like agile, flexible deployment, I don't know. I think come up with better words than that. Agile. Reposition during non-jam phase. Maybe agile is the same as deploy. Let's call it dynamic deploy, or tactical deploy. It doesn't really matter for me. We can go with. I just want to make sure I can remember what the actual effect is by the turn. So what if cards with dodge, when they would be either the default target of a counter or the default target of a backstab, what if they could full tap to send it to the next card down the line? And maybe dodge. Nice day out. Maybe dodge is something that doesn't come into effect Because we have block, we have the shield block, tap away to negate full damage. What if dodge is something that a card can do once it's already been tapped a certain direction to counter or attack? And it full taps after you dodge. And when you dodge, you have the choice to direct that attack to the next default target. Huh. That wouldn't work. Maybe that's always what happens. Ooh. Okay. See, I don't even need to play test it. I can just play test it in my head. So dodge will essentially not do anything unless the card's already been tapped. I kind of like that. And I think we scrap the default target and we go back to saying, okay, the health can be the default target. That gives players more time to get themselves in the game if they get off to a rough start against their opponent, and it prevents them from getting beat down incessantly. That's the way to do it. Okay, so we're going to update dodge. This feels better. Dodge is something you only use when you're already tapped. Full taps you. And it sends the attack to the next guy in the battle line. But you can only use it when being attacked from behind. Otherwise, it's an auto counter. Yeah, it might work. Woo! So this is why I love doing game design, because you come up with these ideas and it's like, yeah, of course that could work in my crazy system that I designed. That could make gameplay more balanced or more dynamic. And then, you realize, like, later, like, oh, well, there's a better idea. Or you just, for whatever reason, you stop thinking it's a good idea. But then, down the road, you go back and say, wait a minute, it actually was a good idea. Partly. Alright, so let's update the rules. Alright, Rock. We've got a fundamental rules update here. Ready? Only upright cards on battle line are never default. target. Thus, players may defending players may mill to take damage if all cards are up. Secondly, the dodge ability must change. Now, dodge can only be used if card is already tapped, left or right, and attack comes from backside. If card dodges, attack proceeds. I like this way better. This is more thematic too. Proceeds through the battle line to the next default target, if in. Dodging card full taps. This is great. This game is going to be a hit. I'm telling you right now. Whoever takes this idea and runs with it is going to make a bunch of money, probably. But it's not going to be me. I think my role here is to just finish the game, put it on the internet, and let people play it. Of course, it might suck. I still haven't play tested it. But it seems to me like this game might actually be pretty fun. Or at least this whole concept. I mean, I'm sure it's nothing new, but it's the combination of different things, really. See, I don't know much about tabletop games. Like, I haven't played that many. I've played a lot of Dune Imperium. I've played a lot of Keyforge. I've played a lot of Magic the Gathering. And I've played a lot of poker. Decent amount of Final Girl. But that's it. I have not played a lot of tabletop games. So, I think that's a good update. It should make the game more tactical. The thing players are really going to have to do that they're not used to in other card games is compute the meaning of the various symbols, taking into account the position of those cards on the battle line. They don't really need to worry about their battle line when it comes to attacking, which maybe I could work on a little bit. Maybe that could be improved. Maybe there's room there for some mechanics that might make the game more interesting, but they only need to worry about the arrangement of their cards in terms of defending. And the arrangement plus the orientation that their cards are in within that arrangement. But it's really the thing players are going to have to do that they're not used to is look at the boards, look at the symbols, the offensive and defensive symbols on their opponent's side mainly, what they have available to attack with on their side, the power levels of those cards, because that will come into play if we're talking about removal. Because even though a card blocks once, it still has a second counter. And it might have, or as soon as it counters once, it still has a second counter. If it blocks once, it has a counter available from a certain direction. There won't be a second block unless special, keyword, and unless there's a keyword. And then dodge essentially saves a card from getting killed. So they're going to have to be thinking about speed and reach, relative speed and reach values, and they're going to have to be thinking about relative power values, and they're going to have to be thinking about which cards are in the way of the cards they want to kill. And they're going to have to be thinking about, okay, which cards do I want to have facing what directions when it comes to be my opponent's turn? Because you might not want to counter with a particular card against another particular card if you can avoid it. You might want to dodge with that card. Or you might want to make sure that a particular card does not have its back turned to either one or the other directions on your board because of which of your cards are on either side of that card. So players will go through in their minds possible attacks. I'm talking about guys that get really good at this game. Ideally there's people out there that would want to do that. Would want to become good at a game like this. So what is the game? What is the game really? When it boils, besides all the cutesy card game elements, the game is into combat is computing the best sequence to attack in, the best orientation to have your cards ending up as when you finish your turn. So the best direction to attack in. So you have to decide when you're attacking, it's your turn, which cards am I going to attack with? What order are they going to attack in? And from which direction, either left or right, is each of their attacks going to be? And you might change your mind depending on what your opponent does throughout your turn. I mean, let's say I cap the number of cards you can have on the battle line at 6. You know, that's not that complicated. But really, the entire game is just because it should create like a pretty complex situation, I think, where one line of moves is, you know, there's going to be many different lines that you could take, like in chess, during any given combat phase. Because let's say at any point in any chess game, how many different moves might a player have available to him? Well, you take all the pieces that can move, and you add up all the possible spaces where they can potentially move. I would imagine at any given point in a chess game that's going to be pretty high, especially when you have a lot of pieces left. It's not as high when you first start the game because a lot of your own pawns are blocking your pieces. So that number throughout a chess match increases. But then as people lose material on both sides of the board, it decreases. So I would say that with my game, yeah, it's just tap this card left or right, add it up for each card you have available to tap. Not that many choices, but when you take the whole combat phase and say that that's a single turn, as if it's one chess move, I mean, that's not really a fair way to compare it, I guess, but yeah. I think players will be thinking a lot on their combat phases. Because an important aspect of this is the reach and speed bonus advantages are only applied when attacking. And it's not as straightforward as, oh, I just want to hit, I want to cover the scissors with my rock, and I want to cover, I want to cut the paper with my scissors. That's not how it is. It's a little more complex than that, I think. It's not as... Because the cards with superior reach will gain indestructible, right? So, when attacking. So, ideally, you hit cards with slower weapons that have the same power, because you'll eliminate those cards without getting eliminated yourself. The cards with fast attack, gain death touch or whatever with superior speed. So you obviously want to make good trades with those cards against slower, more powerful cards. You want to attack into those cards. So, and then, we've got the attribute traits, but that's just a system for connecting cards to skills that they're able to play. Nothing really beyond that I've come up with. So yeah, you throw skills into the game, and that's just gonna add a lot of randomness to it. But I think players will enjoy, in a card game, the combination of careful tactical planning and your standard card game bonus effects and mechanics. So, I definitely like what we decided for dodge. I like what we decided about default targets and the player life total. Got to come up with some more abilities. We need to come up with a few keywords, because a lot of keywords from Magic the Gathering we're not going to have in this game. Vigilance is basically, we can have vigilance, but it'll just it's actually kind of a reverse vigilance. No, it's the same as vigilance. Vigilance, you don't tap when you attack in Magic the Gathering. But in this game, we need the cards to tap. But for vigilance, we can just say untap at the end of your turn. Before the end of on your end step, you can untap these cards if you want, before drawing a card. So we can have that keyword. I think today maybe today I just focus on the class cards, getting them all completed. But more importantly than just adding ability text to the class cards, I figure out keywords. I figure out all the keywords I want to have. The main keywords I want to have in the game. And if all these cards just have keywords on them, that's great. That works fine. But they have to be unique, I think. Well, this is a good question. Do I want the weapons to simply be things that represent speed and reach position on the scale, on the speed and reach scale, or But I gave them all these special flavor effects to go with them. Do I try to make those special flavor effects keywords? I think that I do. Potentially. I think that'll help players understand be able to talk about the effects better, understand the effects better. Yeah, I think that should be a goal as well. Because I'm giving a lot of fundamental gameplay attributes to these weapon symbols, and I don't want to block out that from being available to other cards, any of those abilities that don't necessarily use those weapons. So the weapons should have keywords tied to them, I think. It'll be easier to understand the way the weapons work. You just say, okay, this one has unarmed, has a speed of 1 and a range of 6, or a speed of 5 and a range of 1, and it has this keyword. Dagger has speed of 4 and range of 2 and this keyword. Magic has range of 5 and speed of 1 and that's actually how it works with magic. It has banish. So I'll come up with keywords for all the effects that are currently tied to weapons, and that way they can be combined with other cards the way I did with Spell Sword and Nightblade. They don't have the magic weapon, but they have the banish keyword. But how necessary is it to give keywords to every weapon? I think it makes sense. Yeah. One keyword effect on every weapon. But then are cards doing too much? Perhaps? Maybe not. Because if I didn't do that, I'd have to put banish, the banish keyword on every magic user. Got to come up with a lot of terms here and a lot of effects. Yeah, the thing that's innovative, though, is the whole battle line orientation, sequential attacking and blocking system that I think is pretty good. There should be some kind of support mechanic where maybe just if you're adjacent, if a card's adjacent, you can full tap as an activate, to add a certain amount of power to the card that's next to you when attacking or blocking. That'd be a good one. We really want to give players like a rich tapestry of potential decisions or plays that they can make in one combat phase. So we need a word for instant deploy because there's no reason we can't have that. Like I said, man, so much to do to build out this game. I'm gonna take a shower and get back to it, I guess.